We're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with our last presentation of the day. This is going to be a presentation on the Census Bureau's economic programs. The presenter will be Mr. Charles or Chuck Brady. He is the Respondent Outreach and Promotions Branch Chief for the U.S. Census Bureau. He is now at the helm, and he's going to lead us through the economic programs. So I think there's someone still hasn't muted their phone. So please make sure that your mics are on mute so we can do the presentation. Thank you. So we'll, Chuck, take it away.
Thanks, Alan. I appreciate it. Can everybody see my screen?
I can see it.
Perfect.
Yes.
I am glad I jumped on a little early because I heard there was a question about demographic characteristics of business owners.
Yes.
And what I do know is that I don't know a lot about it, but I dropped in a link in the chat for the annual business survey. And they provide data on demographic information on business owners. It's primarily a survey of smaller businesses, and they have information on minority-owned businesses and breakout of minority-owned businesses. They have veteran-owned businesses as well. So a lot of valuable information there. I find it fascinating. I don't know how I don't know all the details about how it's conducted, and I do know that it's a very popular data set. And that question comes up quite a bit. So I don't know if anyone has any questions, once you take a look, then please, by all means, feel free to reach out to me, and I will put you in touch with the right people to get you the best answers that you can that they can provide. But it's just that, you know, in some of those cases, like I like to say, if I don't, I'm not afraid to say I don't know the answer, but I can find out who does.
Okay, so hopefully, Ethel, you can reach out to Chuck for that question. She had they were working with she's with the Filipino Chamber of Commerce, and okay. Yeah, so
sounds great. Ethel, please feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to put you in touch with the right people. So to get started, again, my name is Chuck Brady. I'm with the U.S. Census Bureau's Economic Management Division, and I'm responsible for respondent outreach for our economic surveys. I wish I was there in Arizona with you guys because I love your state. I gotta say, it's
nice weather right now.
Can imagine. Here's my agenda. As Alan said, I'm going to speak about the economic programs and the 5-year economic census, why response makes a difference. I'll give you a sneak peek into our response promotion campaign for the economic census, how we use data tools to inform that ad campaign, a bit more about response promotion for the upcoming economic census, and I am certain I'm going to have time at the end for some Q&A. Economic programs and the economic census. This pyramid really reflects our economic programs. At the very top are programs that are somewhat new, that really were started with the onset of COVID. We conducted what we were calling at the time the Small Business Pulse Survey, and there's a Household Pulse Survey and business formation statistics. They're released on a biweekly and weekly basis. Some of you may be familiar with them. We're trying to promote them as much as we can. And again, with the Small Business Pulse Survey in particular, it was one where we wanted to leverage our list of businesses that we had on file and not to ask too much and provide too much of a burden, but to ask specific businesses, excuse me, how they were doing in COVID, how they saw from month to month, how they saw their businesses thriving or not, and what some of the challenges were. That's at the very top of our pyramid. The next one is monthly and quarterly surveys, including our key economic indicators. Those are the ones that really move the markets. Like, for instance, the monthly retail trade survey. You may hear in the nightly news that there's retail sales went up or down a certain percentage point from the prior month, and that all comes from us at the Census Bureau. We're never given credit for it. We're never listed as the source. It's usually the Department of Commerce, but it comes from the Census Bureau. And so that's, again, those economic indicators are critical to the nation's economy. We conduct annual surveys that have larger samples and the most up-to-date trend data available. And as we grow, as we conduct surveys, as surveys are less frequent, we have the opportunity to sample more and to have more data available by geography and by industry. So the annual surveys gives us that chance to provide more granularity in terms of geography and industry. And every 5 years, we have a census of governments and an economic census that provides the most detailed information available on the U.S. economy. And here today I'm talking about the economic census. At the base of the pyramid, we have administrative data because we collect data. We have data accessible from other agencies and from our own business register that we use to publish without collecting data. So this administrative data, a good example of that are non-employer statistics. The scope of the economic census in most of our economic surveys are for employer businesses, but we can still publish data on non-employer businesses using administrative data. The program set the standard for U.S. economic statistics and fueled by data provided by businesses and governments. Now, a little more about the economic census. This top bullet really is something that we like to share, and we ask trusted voices to share in their communities and with their contacts, because research tells us that not everybody understands this, that while everyone knows the U.S. Census Bureau measures the nation's population once every 10 years, a lot of people don't know that we measure the U.S. businesses every 5 years with the economic census. The next economic census will be conducted starting in January 2023, January 31st to be exact, is when our mail out goes out. And we ask companies to report their 2022 year-end data. The census will be conducted purely online, with one exception in Puerto Rico. Upon request, we have paper forms available in Puerto Rico, but the vast majority is conducted online, and the deadline is March 15th, 2023. Responses are held confidential under Title 13 of the U.S. Code. Collected data are used for specifically for statistical purposes only. Now, that same Title 13 mandates response by law to the economic census. Here's some information required. We ask the following for each business location. And the reason we ask for it by business location is so that we can report that geographic detail. So, for instance, there could be a company with 1,000 locations, and we'll mail an invitation to respond to one person at that company. But what we ask them to do, though, is break out the data they report by location. We ask for a confirmation of employer ID, of physical location, of primary business activity, and then we ask for sales revenue or receipts, employment and payroll. Now, with employment, we ask for a snapshot in time. It's a biweekly pay period in March, where and that's to avoid turnover in specific industries that could cause an imbalance. Like, for instance, fast food. There's a ton of turnover in the fast food industry, so we ask for just a snapshot of time for the employee count. And then for payroll, we ask for annual payroll and first quarter payroll. And then we also ask for industry-specific questions. Again, data you can only find every 5 years, but only from the economic census. I'll give you an example of industry-specific questions. Because we have different versions of the electronic form, if you will, we have almost 800 different electronic paths, if you will, because we don't have forms anymore. Let's say, like, for instance, restaurants, we actually ask them for menu type. So if there's a pizza restaurant receives a form and we ask them to choose among a list of menu type and they check pizza, well, that menu type question we would not ask that of a hardware store. We'd ask them for breakout of their sales for tools and so forth. So it's very detailed by geography, by industry, and we can provide that sort of interesting data at the industry level, all the way down to the 6-digit NAICS codes when we can. Now, the thing is also about Title 13, we undergo, not only do we undergo a lot of training, we undergo a lot of disclosure analysis, and which really contributes to the duration of our analysis to ensure that none of those businesses' data are divulged. And so that also means that the more detail we get by geography or by industry, sometimes we have, if the data are too sparse, we're not allowed to publish. Now, it's worthy to note that, and I was mentioning something about non-employer businesses. Most businesses do not receive an economic census. Only businesses with employees, the ones that fill out the 941, are in scope of the economic census. And even then, if an employer business only has one location, then that group of single establishment businesses is sampled. So, this chart here shows that there are around 30 million businesses in the U.S. altogether, but only 8 million employer businesses. And of those 8 million employer business establishments, only 4 million are in scope of the economic census. So again, if a business has more than one location, then they're a certainty case. If they have one location, then they're subject to sampling. The smaller the business is, the less likely they would be included in the economic census. And we really do this to reduce the burden that we would impart on the small business community. Program specifics, we will mail official letters at the end of January 2023, and it's an invitation to respond. It's not, no form will accompany that letter. The letters include a unique authentication code to access the survey at portal.census.gov. And we also ask these businesses, if they haven't done so already, to set up an online account with a username, an email username, a password, some security questions, much like that other accounts that are set up and are commonplace these days. Help will be available online and via phone, and the response deadline is March 15th, 2023. So to recap, the economic census provides the most comprehensive data available. Our first release is planned for early 2024 because we'll collect past the deadline to an extent, and it just takes a long time with that volume of data to go through it to ensure confidentiality and to make sure we get everything right. So we're targeting March of 2024 for the first data release. Now, the difference this time from past ones is, for those of you that were familiar with past economic census data releases, is that this time we will publish our entire geographic area series at once. So all the data from the states will come out all at one time. And in the past, we had sort of trickled them out depending on the state, and we had methodology for how we ordered the state releases. But this time, they're all coming out together. Responses from each company are aggregated to create this data, and the information again can never be shared. In fact, and I mentioned that we undergo training consistently, but we're sworn for life. So whenever I decide to retire, who knows when that's going to be, probably sooner than later, I'm still sworn for life to never divulge any information that I may have knowledge of about individual businesses. Now, having said that, I don't really, I would never keep records of it, so it wouldn't matter, but we're sworn for life. Probably the last bullet, probably the most important thing I'll say here is that, and I'm sure most of you today know this, but results from all census economic surveys are free and available online for companies to use in business planning and for so many other reasons. They're free. Now, we all understand that there are third-party providers that will take our data, repackage it, and sell it to specific target audiences. And it makes a lot of sense, and it provides value. Honestly, it does. But those third-party providers do some things with our data that we won't do. They'll provide forecasting and things of that nature that we won't do. So they do serve a purpose in most cases, but if you come straight to the source, come to us, the data are always free. Our message for businesses who receive the economic census is your response makes a difference. I want to show you our data stories campaign. We conducted focus group research, like we've done this in past economic census, and confirms that people are more motivated to respond to census business surveys when they understand that data are available for them to use. It's a big difference. It's a big motivator when we show the value of the data that results from the surveys and the economic census. People want to know that we're just not that their data aren't just going into some government black hole, or that the census economic surveys are just an excuse for us to track businesses. It's honestly, it is, it's when people understand that there are data available for the business community to use, even if they can't use it themselves, they're more apt to respond. So that's why we developed the campaign we did, and you'll see what I'm talking about shortly, providing specific examples of how people use census data for their businesses, showing actual census data. I'll give you a little bit of background about how this came about. This is one of our personas for our ad campaign. This is Linda. Linda used Census Bureau data to help find the best location for her new bakery. Statistics made possible by your response to the economic census. Thank you for your response. And then you can see to the right in this particular ad that this is real data that Linda would have drawn from the Census Business Builder, from the county business patterns. I'm sure when I read that statement, when I said data to help find the best location for her new bakery, some of you were probably already thinking about the Census Business Builder. And that's exactly what we want to show, is that the data are easily accessible. This is real data that a business can use. Just a little background about here I see I'm showing this is where this is the source information, so that one could see that, yes, this actually, if I wanted to find out where Linda got that data, then I can go to this URL. Linda would have gone to the Census Business Builder homepage and selected Small Business Edition. I know many of you have seen this routine before. Linda selected Franklin County, Ohio, because that's the area she was looking for, and chose food services, and then bakeries, and then went to the map. Again, I'm not going to get into a lot of the detail. You guys have had the honor of hearing Lacey speak. You're going to hear Kaneen Reese speak. They're the experts. They're the ones that are so great at presenting this data and are responsible for the tools, in Kaneen's case, that allows access to the data. So this is something Linda would have done, and then she could have created a report from Census Business Builder, and this is where we actually drew the data for that particular ad. We have different iterations of the campaign that we're developing now. This is Paula, and you can see this is a different photo. Paula's in New York City. She used census data to set her economic development plan for Manhattan. Statistics made possible by your response to the economic census. Now, we continue to use the Census Business Builder tool, but here I just dropped in results from QuickFacts, because that's another data tool that we like to promote in the business community. And then Joseph as a florist, the same idea, florist in Montgomery County, Maryland. What Joseph could have done, even though we cite Census Business Builder, is access data from data.census.gov. So those are really the three data tools that we like to promote in the community, in the business community, to access data that are free and available online. However, we really use the Census Business Builder when we build those actual ads. Here are the three examples that we have, and we're building more. I'll show you a few in a minute, and why we selected the cities and the industries that we did. This is an example of how we'll and already have started to apply the campaign. We have a website that's shown in the upper right, census.gov/econ. We'll have opportunities for print ads, you see in the lower left for some digital ads. And so we have plans for lots of opportunities to share our message on print, digitally, online. And here's an example of some of the customization that we've already done, and we're going to continue to build upon this. What this does is this is really a mix of industries and geographies that research has told us has had historically have had lower response rates. So we identified 12 markets and 12 industries that had low response rates based on our study of 2017 economic census response. So for instance, in the middle, Angelo used Census Bureau data to find the best location for his restaurant. And the data in that campaign, in that ad, would be from Cook County, Illinois, which is Chicago. Chicago is one of those cities on our list, and restaurants are one of those industries that have always had a lower response. So that's the kind of idea we're getting at. As we get requests for ads, and we have much more ability now to customize the promotion that we're doing. Now, more about response promotion. Our website, census.gov/econ. We launched the site on September 18th. It provides information, and really, admittedly, right now we still have a way to go to fully build out the site. But we wanted to release it because we started to make materials available. So we do have some information on the site right now. This is just going to be more in a short amount of time. We have information for respondents. We have access to promotional materials, and we have those campaigns, those examples of how your response makes a difference. Here is where we encourage users to access the site and then connect with my office directly. And we can help recommend different tools, different assets that we can provide to help associations and other trusted voices, state data centers, promote a response to the data and promote response to the economic census. We have brochures that are available for distribution in English and Spanish language for now. Right now, we have a short run. I just ordered a large run that will hopefully sustain us throughout the economic census collection cycle. So if anyone's interested in some brochures to distribute and to share at an event or in your communities, by all means, please reach out, and I'd be more than happy to provide them. Alan, I don't know whether we could do that through you or however you see fit, but we'll have materials to distribute. We'll have other digital ads and so forth on the site. And we have a census logo that will be available for partner communications. And I just want to share this with you. It's real simple, and it doesn't really seem like much, I would say, to just like someone who just takes a look at this. But it's pretty rare that the economic census, that we've ever been allowed to have our own logo. And we also found in research that even when we ask the small businesses that are participating in our focus groups, where do you think the economic census comes from? A lot of them don't know. They say the Department of Labor, they say all these other entities, and census is in the name, and they still sometimes don't understand that the economic census comes from the Census Bureau. So when we're at conferences, it's already paid dividends, like in the past, and Lacey could tell you this too, because I've been to conferences with Lacey, and people come by and they say, count me, or they'll say, what do you do the other 9 years and things like that. But now we've already been to conferences and used this logo because we've had some sponsorships, and we put our ad around the exhibit hall, for instance, and people now will come up and say, okay, tell me more about the economic census. I didn't know you did that. So it's already paid dividends already, and that's our effort to promote response to the economic census. I just wanted to show a couple of screenshots of the brochures we have that we can distribute in English and in Spanish. Again, we'll have additional material soon, and we have a plan for how to reach out to the business community to help promote response. This is all really tied to the notion that we've always stood by, that the message coming from a trusted voice, like a state data center in the business community, to respond to an economic survey means a lot more than the Census Bureau saying, hey, respond to your Census Bureau survey. You guys really provide that legitimacy that we can't, because it's the Census Bureau promoting their own survey. So what we do is leverage intermediaries like yourselves and ask you to help us support response by sending out emails to your contacts in your communities. what we're going to do this time in terms of emails is we're going to have a set of 3 emails that goes out from you to your contacts. So we'll provide this information to anybody that's willing to share it. The week of January 15th will be an introduction and information about the economic census that will be coming out at the end of January. Then on February 15th, another opportunity to send out an email for respondents and an invitation to a webinar that I'm going to conduct. Now, the thing about the webinar is that we want people to attend the webinar. It's important information, but really it's just as important is that we're going to leverage that webinar as a chance just to send that email out, just to stay on everybody's radar. So I think that we think this is really important. It's worked in the past, and the research has told us that it's a good idea to do this to keep on people's radar. And then March 15th, right around the due date, the week of March 15th, we'll send out a 3rd email. So we hope that this really takes hold in the business community through trusted voices, again, through intermediaries like yourselves that can really help us with response to the economic census. And as you guys know, the quality data that comes from the economic census only comes from quality response. It's really critical that we get quality response to produce the data that we want to produce beginning in March of 2024. So I know that probably went a little faster than I even anticipated. And it wasn't very data rich as much as it was talking about promotions for, and opportunities for response. That's where we are in our cycle for the economic census. And I think next time around, I can come back and talk more about how that's going and give you more details about the data that we'll produce as a result. So I'm available to answer any questions anybody might have.
Charles, we did have a question in the chat from Ethel as to whether there will be downloadable materials for easy distribution, from folks.
Hi, Ethel. Yes, thank you. There will be. What we're planning to do, at least at the outset, is on the website we'll have a link to email my office, and then we can provide those digital. We can talk to you about what exactly you need, and we can provide them that way. It seems to be more effective than just putting them out there for people just to grab and use. But if that seems to be the case later, that we would do it that way as well. But at first, we're just going to provide a link for you to contact us, and then we'll provide what you need. I will say something about the digital. The digital assets aren't quite ready yet. We anticipate that they'll be ready probably at the end of October, the beginning of November.
And we did have another person, Jeanette, who said that she would love to. I guess she said she would love to have some materials. So, do we have a? I can. Or if you want to, we can provide your email address for them to get in contact with you all.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Alan. I had no idea. I mean, I don't know why. I have my email address at the end of every presentation I ever deliver, but not today. I'm sorry. I apologize. There it is right there.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeanette. Sorry about that. Yeah, and again with the brochures, I ordered like 50,000, so we'll have plenty to distribute once they come in.
Charles, this is Barb LaFleur.
Hey, Barb.
Are we going to be doing tweets that can be retweeted? I think I said that right. I'm not sure. I know it's tweets, but retweet.
Yeah, we work with the communications directorate and to put out to release some social media content, and they include Twitter. So yes, we will. We have yet to come up with a schedule yet. It's a little too soon, too far in advance of mail out to start tweeting out, but we will soon. So far, what we have done is we've taken the strategy that just general awareness about economic data. That's never too soon to do that. So we've done that. We'll continue to do it.
Yes, my name is Jim. I actually work with Alan, so we're in the same office. I have a question. So at the beginning, you talked about how many businesses established there are and how many are employers. I think you used the 8 million and 4 million. 4 million is the number you're going to sample throughout the country. So I'm wondering, when you release the data, is that going to be about the 4 million businesses, around 4 million establishments that you actually survey, or is that going to be about the 8 million businesses or establishes that should be represented? Just wanted to understand, what the data is representing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks, Jim. Good question. It will represent the entire employer business community. So I say 8 million because that's an estimate of what we have right now. So we don't know what it's going to be. But yeah, it represents the larger number based on the sampling. So those small businesses, the single unit establishments, actually respond on behalf of several more.
Okay. So it's called a census. It's actually a more of a large sample.
Well, the thing about the businesses that are not in the sample is we have administrative records for them. So it's like a combination of the administrative records and the response to the actual businesses that are in the survey.
Okay, thank you.
Sure thing.
Any other questions for Mr. Brady? Now's your opportunity. He is here in front of us.
I am here. So if there are no more questions, my email is in the chat. And so by all means, please feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys might have.